Hi. In this set of lectures, we're going to talk about coordination and culture. And by coordination, I just mean doing the same thing that somebody else is doing, coordinating on a behavior, an action, belief, that sort of thing. By culture, well, that's a little bit more complicated. What do we mean by culture? Well, typically when you think about culture, you mean differences between countries, differences between groups of interacting people. So people from Japan act differently than people from Germany. People from Germany act and believe and behave differently than people from El Salvador. So we think about just differences between countries. Now, in order for there to be differences between the people within a country or nation state, or even a small group, there have to be similarities within. So it means that there have to be similar actions within a group. And that's where the coordination game is going to enter. And in addition, when you think about cultural behavior, we think of it being interesting. I mean, interesting sort of down there in italics. What I mean is that it can be suboptimal in a way. It can be if you sat down and efficiently said, what should these people be doing? Maybe what we're doing doesn't make sense. And that'll be true of people from every national group. You sort of look at the behavior and think, that seems different than how I would do it, or different than what seems maybe the most efficient way to do it. So by cultural behavior, you're going to mean behavior as well that maybe doesn't look optimal from an outsider's perspective, but possibly viewed within that culture, it makes a lot of sense. So how are we going to do this? How are we going to go after something as abstract and complicated as culture? Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about what culture is. And so we're going to talk about these differences between, similarities within, and interesting behaviors. So we're going to give just a very brief lecture talking about what culture is and how it works. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the pure coordination games. This is a very simple game that enables us to understand why people do the same thing and why sometimes they do the same thing that's not optimal. Now, in the context of this pure coordination game, we're going to want to ask, does it happen? If people are trying to coordinate, does the whole system coordinate? And to understand that, guess what? We're going to use the Lyapunov function. So we're going to use a Lyapunov function model, just like we did in the previous lectures, to explain why we see coordination, how culture can actually emerge through these interactions between people. So that'll be great. We'll see these models sort of working within one another. After we've done the Lyapunov function on a single coordination game, we're going to go to a many-action coordination game. So instead of just coordinating on one behavior, we're going to assume people are coordinating on lots of behaviors. And we're going to use this to explain cultural differences. And in particular, we're going to focus on a model due to one of my colleagues, Bob Axelrod, which looks at how culture emerges and why you might get thick boundaries between different cultures. So that'll be sort of a baseline model of culture, Axelrod's model. Now, one thing that Axelrod's model leaves out is any consistency within cultures. And so when we look at the models of culture, the descriptive models of culture, we'll see that there's a lot of consistency within groups of people. So what we'll do at the end is we'll introduce something called the coordination consistency model, and that'll show us how you can get both coordination between people and consistency within a person in a single model. And to understand that model, it's going to turn out that we're going to need Markov processes, which is one of the models we've used before. Okay, so let's get going. This is going to be a lot of fun. This is actually one of my favorite lectures. And what we're going to do is we're going to get started very simple by talking about what the heck culture is. And then we're going to move on to an incredibly simple game, the coordination game. And then we'll start adding stuff on and using some of our tools from previous lectures, like Lyapunov functions and Markov processes, to make sense of these models of culture. Okay, thanks.